he can make some serious money, and nothing motivates a pro fighter like a pound note.
44,000 turned up at the new stadium last weekend to watch Thomas
business.
Adamek against Vitaly Klitschko.
Yeah. That's at the Liverpool Echo Arena on the 15th of October. And also on that bill, Nathan Cleverly against Tony Bellew in a World Championship fight, which also promises to be a little bit feisty, doesn't it?
Well, I spoke earlier about during that era 20 years ago of Ben Watson and Eubank, it was as if the rest of the world didn't matter. And that's not quite the case now. But when you think of James against George Groves and John Murray against Kevin Mitchell, Nathan Cleverly against Tony Bellew, Tyson Fury against Derek Chisora, it's a great time at the moment for British boxing and for domestic grudge matches as they're built up to be. And I think Cleverly against Bellew is already turning into one of those. Police were called to one of the press conferences earlier this week. They almost did 12 rounds at the press conference for James against George Groves earlier in the year. So again, that's another one that doesn't need a lot of stoking.
And the mad thing is that they're both unbeaten, Tony Bellew and Nathan Cleverly, and they're both really clever guys. Nathan Cleverly's got a proper degree from Cardiff, from Cardiff University, not some sort of ramshackle south of Cardiff on the highway university. The real one. He's got a high degree in maths. And Tony Bellew's a really sharp guy. I think he was training to be an architect or something. But if something happens to these two when they get in each other's company, and now they're Tony Bellew's coach and Nathan Cleverly's father, who's his coach, they got into an altercation. The police had to be called. There was no punches thrown, but it was turning nasty. It was becoming an ugly melee. And the problem with that, the reason why that happened, is that Frank Warren, who keeps the peace in his nicely tailored suits at the middle of press conferences, wasn't there on the day. And he was kicking himself, Frank, because that could have turned really ugly.
Let's talk about Bernard Hopkins against Chad Dawson on the same night. The same night as that bill that James is fighting on as well. Now, if both Cleverly and Bernard Hopkins win, could that fight happen between the two of them?
My gut feeling is it will absolutely 100% happen. What do you think, James?
Listen, this ain't a one-horse race. See how you just said
Tony Bellew's mate.
Please believe me. I've just, now, do you know what? I've sparred both of them, and we've had stinging, hard, competitive spars.
I've seen your Bellew spar.
Yeah, and Bell's a good boy. He can punch very hard and he can box when he wants to. But then again, Cleverly is got fantastic fitness, got fantastic speed with his hand.
Will home advantage make a difference for Bellew as well?
Most definitely.
Fighting in Liverpool.
I personally think it will.
You've had a bit of that, haven't
Bell,
you?
yeah. And Bell, well, I was there when I won my British title. There was 10,000 scousers booing me, but I got through it. But no, I'm really, really looking forward to this one. I can't wait.
I just get the impression, James, it might be just too soon for Bellew.
I'm not too sure. We've seen Cleverly
go to sleep.
A bit, and
go to sleep in fights
and get a bit cocky and stick his hands down and maybe take a shot. You don't want to do that with Tony Bellew.
And what about the Bernard Hopkins potential for him? Facing, would it only be one? Would it only be Cleverly and not Bellew if that were?
Oh, I think the match can be made either way. I mean, if Bellew's beaten Cleverly, then that's a terrific stroke on his record, and that is a fascinating fight in prospect. 46. He might even be 47 by the time that fight comes around, which would just be astonishing. And he would whoever it is, he'll tie them up in knots,
and
win or lose.
And you know what I think? I think that fight could end up here. I really do. That's the sort of fight, that bizarre fight that could end up here. Because Hopkins, I mean, he's been in the twilight of his career for 10 years, but at this point in his career, he's now thinking about being a statesman somewhere, no matter what he does. And I think he'd really fancy the British market. I could see him thinking, you know what? Yeah, that'll do me. I'll have a little bit of that.
In fact, 10 years ago this week, Bernard Hopkins, tonight, 10 years ago, should have fought Felix Trinidad for the middleweight title. He was a massive underdog. It was slated for Madison Square Garden, but it was called off because of 9/11. They fought 2 weeks later, and he won in the 12th round, and it was one of the biggest upsets of the decade at that time. And at 36, people were saying he's finished, and 10 years on, he's still here.